Hey guys, and welcome back to reality. Kind of. Today we're going to be looking at Robert Greene, what I think his Enneagram type might be. He's being typed in the Dark Arts Academy class at Enneagrammer.com this week, so I thought I'd see what impressions I get and how close I end up. So let's check it out. Look at Joseph in the mirror. Alright, so I'm starting off with a Google image search here. First thing I notice is not really a lot of pictures. Not a lot of different pictures anyway. He's not a picture guy. He seems like he kind of smiles sometimes. Definitely feels like a forced smiler because he has to. Oh, this kind of looks like a legit smile. Not a great one. So I don't know, maybe not social? I guess based on first impressions here, I'm thinking like not a positive type. Perhaps not social? Maybe SPSX, Contra, I don't know. Could be social. Guess we'll see. Seems like a lot of his book titles are pretty simple. Just like power, war, mastery. Very like SP themed. So it seems like self-preservation. Power, potentially like something to do with 8. I don't know, does he look like he has a 9 fix? Not really. I was actually kind of surprised to see that he has an Instagram. I don't really know how much he uses it, but let's see what's on here. The first thing I do when I write a book. Looks like this is a video. Oh, it'd help if I had my headphones.
What I do when I write a book, whether it's about power, seduction, or war, I take the most powerful people in their field.
Power, seduction, and war. It's got to be one of those, right?
And I kind of break them down. I figure out what is the essence of them, what's the core of their success. I call it their power center of gravity. Right. So I decided I would do that with you. And so after a couple of months of following you around, I decided that the secret to your success, your power center of gravity, is your fearlessness. So in any kind of situation where you're interacting with people, you're the one that has less fear than they do. And that gives you like a constant strategic advantage. You're able to adapt to the situation, to take risks when other people are afraid of it. And this is, to me, the source of your power.
Okay, so he's like breaking down how people are acquiring power. And this is 50 Cent here, who they have typed as an 8 actually. So yeah, 50 Cent was typed as an SPSO 8-wing 9 836. He's also SEFI in objective personality. What I'm picking up on here is that he's really looking deeply at subjects to understand where their power is coming from. So he's interested in power, which you could say is like a provocative subject, potentially, as a point towards SX. He's trying to get at like the essence of it. So like, where does power come from? What is the root of power? At least based on this single video. Fear, this feels very like headspace, right? A lot of words. It's very headspace. Embrace your creativity. This feels a little bit different than what he's been talking about and the other stuff, so let's see.
The number one commodity that you want that's going to make you a master is creativity. If you're a creative thinker, I don't care if you're working at Subway or wherever, you're going to end up at a great place. The only people that ever get to that point who are the true masters, who we've known, and it doesn't mean you have to reach the Steve Jobs level, there are a lot of mini Steve Jobs out there, is by being yourself. If there are 50 other people like you out in the world, why you? Somebody else can do what you do, and so you're never going to be great, you're never going to be brilliant. But if there's only one you, if you have a skill, a knowledge base, you've learned 3 different fields and you're combining them, and there's nobody else like you, then you've written your own ticket to power and success because you're unreplaceable.
Okay, so power and success. So I was thinking there a little bit about like the potential heart fix, and I'm not really getting much in terms of like 4 or 2. Like this obviously isn't 2. So it does make sense that he's speaking about success. Like, how do you become successful, right? Like, that's the 3 fix speaking. And this started to make me think about Bill Gates as a potential, like, very similar archetype. So they have him typed as SPSO 5-wing 6 538. And I'm kind of seeing similar things here where it's potentially like 583 or 538. Heart secondary is a little bit rarer than gut secondary. And I don't have a whole lot of experiences with 5, so it's kind of hard for me to say that this is 5. Especially off the bat, I'd have to watch a lot more to see him really like getting into the depths, getting into the weeds. This is kind of interesting though. I was wondering if I was going to have to go and find some interviews in interesting clips, but he has kind of compiled that here for me already, or whoever's running this Instagram account. I don't know if it's actually him, but understanding people is the key. I'm a decider, so this one draws my attention.
So we want to be able to feel like in life with our friends, our colleagues, our loved ones, that we can influence them, that we can move them in our direction, that we have the ability to persuade them to do something that's in our interest. And
so he's kind of speaking a little bit collectively, like this could still be 6. Maybe it's 6 wing 5. He's saying like this is what we all want. It's not coming from like this alien, disconnected sense of how things are working. He's kind of seeing us all as together in some way. But having this be 638 or 683 seems kind of strange. I don't know, I guess I'll have to watch more. But the 683 trifix is the Kyle, which is a double reactive kind of like punchy archetype. And that's not really how I see him, but I guess he could be like a nerdier, like he could be a nerdier version with a 5 wing here maybe.
the feeling that we can't do that is deeply painful. It causes lots of amounts of frustration and resentment that can sit inside of us and linger and kind of ruin our attitude towards life.
So I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today where they were talking about how 9 has a lot of like pent up anger. And so that makes me wonder if this has something to do with 9 here. Like maybe I'm just totally off thinking this could be like a head type here, and instead this is some way 9 just philosophizing about the universe as they're known to do. So I guess I'm stepping away from potentially like slamming down like, oh, this is similar to Bill Gates here, thinking I might need to broaden out a bit. Though I forgot the words everywhere. Like this is just so heady.
If you don't realize, if you don't have self-awareness, you can't possibly change yourself. Everybody wants to think they can change themselves. That's why self-help books sell so well. But the thing is, a lot of that, I believe, is nonsense, a lot of what's written, because it's not realistic. You're not seeing who people really are. You're not digging underneath and getting at what really motivates human behavior. So I wanted a very realist.
So he's talking about digging underneath there, so that's potentially like 5 related. Digging is also like the SPSX.
A brutal look at the human animal. It's not all negative. We have some positive traits. But once you realize, oh,
it's not all negative. Okay, so he's balancing it out a little bit. He's not getting super gruesome. He's even adding a little bit of positive spin. Like, could this be 9?
I am capable of feeling envy. Oh, I am irrational at times. Oh, I have a dark side. With that awareness, you can actually finally start to change yourself.
How about stop being naive about power?
If you want power in this world, if you are fighting for a cause, if you want some kind of justice, you have to be strategic. You have to think like that. You have to think in terms of power. People just don't give themselves up. You know, if we have the Me Too movement now, men are not just going to give up all of their control in a place like Hollywood. You have to hit them. You have to be strong. You have to be forceful. It's a power game. And I can't stand people who are naive, who think that just being themselves, just being virtuous is going to get what they want in life. If you're going to fight for something, you have to be able to meet the enemy on their terms of power.
So I get power is like his thing. That's like the thing he researched a lot. He keeps coming back to it. All right, so I think the heart is last, right? But I'm kind of in 6-5 and like 9-8 space here potentially. I don't really see the 1. Like he's talking so much about power, not just like getting it right. There is in some ways like a principle to this. Like you have to do it this way. You can't not do it this way. But it seems to be the 8 way of like you have to establish your dominance. I think I need to find something a little bit longer though, because these little clips are kind of throwing me.
Yeah, well, Da Vinci has a quote on that I use in my book Mastery. He says, I forget, I can't quote it, I can't remember, but the essence of it is, At the end of a day of working hard, you feel kind of a satisfaction that you've got a lot accomplished. At the end of your life, when you feel like you've worked hard and you've kind of done what you were supposed to do, you feel like you had a blessed life. And the reverse of that, which he doesn't discuss, is it's the end of your life, you're in your 60s or 70s, and you're reflecting back about all your missed potential. That is true hell.
Like he's talking about the true hell, and he's talking about working hard being the path out of that. Working hard and contributing in some way is very 6. So I don't know, I think I'm leaning sort of like 683 SP question mark. So I guess I'll see who fits that and if this makes any sense at all. Okay, so like Malcolm X, that's actually an interesting comparison. David Goggins. Yeah, Malcolm X with the 5 wing is an interesting one. What if we just do SPSO 6 wing 5? I think of these, De Niro is kind of an interesting one. I don't want to just point to these 2 old men and say like, oh, he kind of reminds me of these guys, but they haven't done too many classes on 6 wing 5, so this is kind of interesting if that's what this is. Oh, Jason Statham came up. He is 638 instead of 683. So yeah, maybe we can look at Jason Statham. I only really know what this guy's like in his roles, so he seems like a bit of a goofball, actually. Though that might be biased because I was just watching a comedy with Melissa McCarthy and Jason Statham, so.
As a kid, and my dad was a boxer. He done he's taught me how to throw a punch from an early age. So I do a bit of jiu-jitsu here and there. It's all to help with what I do on the screen, you know,
to make it feel and look as real as possible, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to understand what sometimes looks good on the screen isn't as practical as it would be in a real life situation. You know, they have to. Everything's a little exaggerated and a little bit, it's not what
it's slower, right? You got to do it slow, more
exaggerated. Right, like it's slightly different. So you have some.
So here he's kind of like doing a similar thing to Robert Greene in that he's kind of explaining these concepts, right? He's kind of bringing it to the people, which you could potentially say is a 6 wing 5 thing here. That's what I'm thinking about anyway. It seems like he's focused less on power so far, which that's like Robert Greene's thing, right? This is 638, so he's focused a little bit more on how things are coming across, which he's in movies, so that makes sense, right? But that was just my quick impression there. So maybe we do need a 683 to look at, and we do have Malcolm X as an example. You can see what interviews we can find of Malcolm X.
And after a careful analysis, if I could conclude that there was no white support, I would be inclined to have confidence in it. But if I saw him leaning too heavily upon his white liberal friends for support, then I'd be suspicious of that too. The Muslims, in my opinion, represent an all-black party. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pointed out at before 10,000 in Philadelphia on September the 29th at a rally that we were having, that in 19...
So I think notably Malcolm X kind of serving as a figurehead, which SOSP kind of makes sense. You can also see there with like the fancier glasses, which maybe that's a thing from that time that's pretty common, but just sort of little touches like that are often SOSP giveaways, which I'm not really seeing for Robert Greene. So just kind of potential things that we could say are different if they are similar types. He is kind of talking about like who has the power. It's a lot about groups here, which kind of makes sense for social, right? Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure on Robert Greene's instincts. I sometimes have trouble picking up on that. I realized I hadn't really looked at 358, even though I was kind of considering that. Bill Gates and Bobby Fischer are pretty interesting examples, and I did look at them a little bit. So I kind of wanted to take a second look here at Robert Greene with those two fresh in my mind.
So if your interest is only money, or it's only scientific thing, it's not coming from deep within, It comes out in the product as something that people feel is mercenary, has no soul. You put a soul into anything you create by the deep emotions you feel towards it.
I don't know, I guess I struggle to see 5 for him because he's really bringing in some amount of soul. It's not as robotic as I would expect from 5, which, I mean, slight naivete on my part on what 5 is supposed to be looking like, right? This whole focus on soul and like trying to find creativity and things like this are stuff that I am a little bit surprised about. It's not like, oh, I just have my niche and this is like the niche that I understand in this kind of like rigid robotic way, and I'm trying to in some way figure out how I fit into this world by providing this information, which I guess maybe you could say that he's doing that, right? He's like, I've studied this power thing deeply and now I can bring it out to people. 5's the rejection triad, so it's trying to offer something. Like in the case of Bill Gates, he's obviously offering us his knowledge on computers, bringing them to the people, and Bobby Fischer, knowledge of chess, right? Some deep specific knowledge, which definitely what I'm hearing from Robert Greene, but there's a lot of it's less this clicks into this.
Oh, wow.
For this book so far, I've read about 150 books for research. And then I go back like a month later and I put it on a note card. So when I'm reading it, I make little notes on the side about this is interesting. And then I go back and I condense the entire book onto about 10 cards, or I note down the major ideas, the points that interest me. And then I organize these cards into chapters. And then when I start to write the book, I take the 50 cards per chapter, and that's all the material that I need, and I can organize it very quickly.
Oh, wow.
Well, I could certainly see this being 5, right? Like this, just like I'm doing this deep research, and I'm coming out with this product at the end eventually. Are we seeing him pinging off of any structures? Really, he's just kind of digging.
You know, there is such a thing as somebody having more experience than another person. And there is such a thing as somebody who's has authority over you. Mm-hmm. And not everything has to be fair and equal.
No.
So you're the boss. You make more money. You have more experience. You know the business better.
And that's been earned.
And it's been earned. Now you're hiring someone. Yes, they are not your S word. Okay, I agree. And you do want them to feel like they're a part of the team, mm-hmm. right? But you also want them to feel that they're going to learn something from you. There's a level of respect.
Oh.
Make them feel like there's something they're going to learn from you. It's a competency, right? I haven't really been thinking about the competency aspect. Because I guess if I'm comparing 6 to 5, right, it's competency versus reactivity. So it's like, how are you handling the situation? I'm going to be competent. I'm going to make sure that there's something that they can learn from me too. It's not simply about the structure and the authority, right? I don't know. I feel pretty confident on 5-wing 6, 6-wing 5, somewhere in there. I don't have too much experience with 5, so I feel hard just like stamping like, oh yeah, this is 5, but it does feel head. Does feel fairly withdrawn, does feel competent, so could be 5. I guess my argument for not 5 was that it was potentially not so detached. So I'm kind of looking here, is this about authority? Is this about structures? Or is this about having the right information, right? That would be more 5, from my understanding anyway.
3 days later.
Alright, so Robert Greene got his type back. It's social self-preservation, 5-wing 4, 9-wing 1, and 3-wing 2. So we finally got a 5. I'm always screwing up the instincts, so that's something I should definitely focus more on. I've definitely been thinking about it a lot more in terms of synflow versus contraflow, but I haven't really thought about too much what signals I should be looking for. I kind of confused the withdrawnness of Robert Greene for not being social dominant, but as we saw earlier, it did look like he was trying to smile, so I guess that's saying something. I'm not super familiar with 5, so like what's the difference between a social 5 and a social blind 5? I'm not super familiar with that yet. As you saw, I was definitely considering 9 at certain points, but I was pretty sure he was a head type and that he was kind of analyzing power dynamics, which I was really thinking of as 8. Turns out that's also a lot of social self-preservation stuff and maybe just rejection as a whole. That was actually an interesting point that they brought up in the class, that rejection types are interested in power just in general. So 8s are kind of like the most overt about that, but 5s are also seeking power in terms of knowledge, right? Like knowledge is power. It's kind of a classic phrase. And without thinking about it too much how that works for 2, just kind of like the power of love, right? I wish I had really thought more about Robert's demeanor and how he was presenting himself rather than simply the content of what he was talking about, because I was really just looking at what he was talking about, which is like these power dynamics and how we manipulate each other as 8. One of the things they said in the class was that like 8-fixes might see that more as like obvious, like, oh, of course we need to like fight for our space, where Robert is sort of informing people that this is something that's happening and not everyone's paying attention to it. I was kind of oscillating between 5 and 6, but I think a lot of the reason I was doing that is because of Robert's second attachment fix, rather than 5-wing 4. So 5-wing 4 isn't really something I was thinking about, but I guess it doesn't shock me considering he has a 9 fix as well. A lot of what I was thinking of as 5-wing 6 was sort of him taking his knowledge and bringing it to the people. They kind of justified that in the class as 3-wing 2, which is kind of the life coach archetype that they talk about sometimes. And going along with that, 9-wing 1 is also sort of like bringing people along and teaching them. They mentioned how this is sort of similar to Darren Brown and what he was doing. 9 kind of has this quality of absorbing and dispersing, right? So it's kind of like pulling you in a way. And then, so that's the aspect of drawing you in. And then the 1 wing is the instruction, which maybe I'm doing that now. I think one of the last things that was intriguing to me was I was kind of oscillating back and forth between 5 and 6 because of this idea that he was trying to inform everyone, which I guess Darren Brown was doing too. He's kind of coming to people with a unique perspective and saying like, you guys aren't seeing this for some reason. And I kind of thought that was attachment-ish because he's sort of saying like, we're all the same and we're not, you guys aren't seeing this. Kind of this underlying assumption that we're all the same, and maybe that's 9, or maybe that's just being human and seeing that we're all kind of the same. I'm not totally sure in how I'm parsing that out yet, because it seems like hexads are kind of coming at it with this perspective of, yes, we're all different, but attachment types are kind of coming at it from like, we're all the same and we need to differentiate. So it's kind of like they're inverses of each other, but they're both kind of doing both things, but kind of coming at it from different directions. While I'm swimming my hands back and forth. So yeah, I think those were the main things I learned from this class. Excited to finally have another 5. I think they're planning to do a 5 special actually pretty soon, similar to the 4 specials that they have done in the past, where they kind of look at multiple 5s or multiple 4s and describe the patterns that they're seeing in those types. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've been meaning to do some research myself, but there's only so many things I can really do at one time, so it's on the docket for sure. I just go where the consume goes, you know? So yeah, I guess let me know if you guys like this format. Let me know if you think I should break this up into 2 videos. I kind of wanted to do this all in one, but it might be better if I'm able to release my thoughts before the class comes out and then have a follow-up. I don't really know. But yeah, if you like this kind of thing, like, subscribe, check out my website, subjectivepersonality.com, or follow me on Twitter at subjectivePblog. And until next time, see you in reality.